The silent departure. The Galactic Trade Consortium headquarters floated in the neutral zone between 7 star systems, a massive structure of crystalline towers and metallic platforms that had served as the center of interstellar commerce for 3 centuries. Inside the main conference hall, Ambassador James Richardson sat quietly among representatives from 47 different species, his weathered hands folded on the table before him. James had served as humanity's chief liaison to the consortium for 12 years. Before that, he had been a merchant marine captain, navigating the dangerous trade routes between human colonies and alien markets. He was 61 years old, with gray hair and eyes that had seen both the best and worst that the galaxy had to offer. Today, he would witness something that fell firmly into the latter category. Chairman Velthus, a towering being from a Morphean species with translucent skin that shimmered in the station's artificial light, stood at the central podium. His 4 arms gestured as he spoke, each movement precise and deliberate. The Morpheans prided themselves on logic and careful planning, traits that had made them natural leaders of the consortium. "The motion has been decided," Velthus announced, his voice carrying through the chamber without amplification. "By a vote of 46-1, the Human Regulation Accord has been approved." James felt the words settle over him like a heavy blanket. Around the room, alien representatives shifted in their seats. Some looked satisfied. Others appeared uncomfortable. None met his gaze. The Human Regulation Accord was elegant in its cruelty. It did not call for humanity's expulsion from the consortium. Instead, it imposed a series of restrictions that would effectively reduce humans to second-class participants in galactic affairs. Human trading vessels would require special permits for each journey. Human businesses would need alien supervisors. Human settlements would be subject to unannounced inspections. Human technological innovations would be reviewed and approved before implementation. The reasoning, as Velthus had explained in previous sessions, was simple. Humans were too unpredictable. They formed emotional attachments to their business partners. They took unnecessary risks. They innovated too quickly, disrupting established markets. They negotiated with passion rather than pure logic. In short, they made the other species uncomfortable. James thought about the human traders who had pioneered routes through the Kelvin Nebula, opening up an entire sector to commerce. He thought about the human engineers who had designed the emergency life support systems that now existed on every consortium station. He thought about the human mediators who had resolved dozens of trade disputes, often working for weeks without rest to find solutions that satisfied all parties. But he said nothing about any of this. There was no point. The vote had been cast. The decision made. Ambassador Richardson, Velthus said, finally looking directly at James, "You have the opportunity to address the assembly before the accord takes effect." James stood slowly. He was not a tall man by human standards, and among the various alien species in the chamber, he appeared almost insignificant. He wore a simple gray suit, the formal attire of human diplomats, with a small silver pin on his lapel representing Earth. Every eye in the chamber focused on him. Across the galaxy, millions of beings watched through live feeds. Human families gathered around screens in their homes, waiting to hear what their ambassador would say. What defense would he offer? What compromises would he propose? James looked around the chamber one final time. He saw the Kelteran delegation, insectoid beings whose colony ships humans had once rescued from a spatial anomaly. He saw the Prion observers, crystalline entities whose economic models humans had helped modernize. He saw the Xandorian trade ministers, whose shipping companies had been saved from bankruptcy by human investment. Every species in this room had benefited from human involvement in the consortium. Every single one had just voted to restrict that involvement. James reached up and unpinned the silver badge from his lapel. It was a small thing, hardly noticeable, but in the silent chamber, the gesture carried weight. He placed it carefully on the table before him. "We understand," he said. His voice was quiet, calm, without anger or bitterness. "We will comply." That was all. 2 simple sentences. Then James Richardson, ambassador of humanity to the Galactic Trade Consortium, turned and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the vast chamber. No one tried to stop him. No one spoke. Outside the conference hall, James found his assistant waiting. Sarah Chun was 34, brilliant with languages, and had dedicated her career to building bridges between humanity and the stars. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. "Sir, what are our instructions?" she asked. James looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his personal communicator and sent a single message to every human representative, every human business, every human settlement within consortium space. The message contained only 3 words: begin withdrawal protocol. Within hours, the order had been transmitted to every human presence in consortium territory. There was no debate, no protest, no demand for reconsideration. The response was simply immediate, quiet compliance. On the trading hub of Nexar 7, Captain Lisa Morrison received the message on the bridge of her cargo vessel, the Meridian. She had been hauling freight through consortium space for 8 years, building relationships with dozens of alien merchants. She read the message twice, then nodded to her crew. "Plot a course for home," she said. "We leave in 6 hours." Her first officer, a young man named David Park, stared at her. "Captain, we have contracts, commitments. People are depending on us." "We're going home, David," Lisa said firmly. "All of us. We leave nothing behind." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out thousands of times. Human doctors closed their clinics in consortium medical facilities. Human teachers concluded their classes at alien universities. Human technicians powered down the systems they had maintained for years. Human merchants settled their accounts and departed. They did not argue. They did not complain. They did not explain their reasons or beg for exceptions. They simply left, quietly and efficiently, taking their knowledge and skills with them. On the consortium headquarters station, Trade Director Zilphon of the Prion species watched the departure logs with growing unease. Zilphon was responsible for tracking commerce throughout the consortium, and what the data showed troubled him deeply. "They are really leaving," he said to his deputy, his crystalline form pulsing with agitated colors. "All of them. I calculated that perhaps 20% would depart in protest, maybe 30%. But this is complete evacuation." His deputy, a younger Prion named Kestrel, checked the data feeds. "The last human trading vessel departed Sector 12 4 hours ago. Sector 18 reports 0 human presence as of this morning. The pattern is consistent across all regions." Zilphon turned to look out the observation window at the space beyond. Human ships could be seen departing in steady streams, their engines glowing as they accelerated toward the borders of consortium space. They moved with military precision, despite being civilian vessels. "Send a message to the human vessels," Zilphon instructed. "Tell them that the Accord does not require immediate departure. They have 90 days to comply with the new regulations." The message was sent. No human vessel responded. Within 72 hours of Ambassador Richardson's departure from the conference hall, the last human presence had vanished from consortium space. They left behind empty offices, closed businesses, and functioning systems that hummed along on automated protocols. They took their personal belongings, their technical documentation, and their accumulated expertise. Chairman Velthus stood in his office, reading reports from across the consortium. The humans had withdrawn completely. Not a single human trader, technician, doctor, or diplomat remained. They had not sabotaged anything. They had not stolen anything. They had simply removed themselves entirely from consortium affairs. A message arrived on his personal terminal. It came from Ambassador Richardson, transmitted from somewhere beyond the consortium border. Velthus opened it, expecting anger or threats or demands for apology. Instead, he found only a brief statement. "The Galactic Trade Consortium has made its decision regarding humanity's role in interstellar affairs. We respect that decision and have adjusted our presence accordingly. Humanity wishes a consortium continued prosperity and success. We will focus our efforts on our own development. May your ventures prove profitable and your trade routes safe." The message ended with formal diplomatic courtesies, properly formatted according to consortium protocol. There was no bitterness in the language, no hidden threats, just professional acknowledgement and withdrawal. Velthus read the message 3 times. Something about it made him deeply uncomfortable, though he could not identify why. The humans had done exactly what the Accord had intended. They had accepted their reduced status and adjusted accordingly. So, why did it feel like something terrible had just happened? In her private quarters, Representative Solara of the Kelthran delegation sat in the darkness, unable to rest. She had voted in favor of the Accord, convinced by Chairman Veltis's arguments about stability and predictability. The humans were chaotic. He had said, they disrupted established patterns. Better to limit their influence before they cause real problems. But now, watching the last human ships disappear beyond the border, Solara felt a growing sense of dread. She thought about the human rescue team that saved her colony ship 15 years ago, working for 3 days straight without rest to repair the damaged engines. She thought about their captain, a woman named Torres, who had refused payment and simply said she was glad to help. Solara had voted to restrict people like Captain Torres, to classify them as problematic, to reduce their role in galactic affairs. She pulled up the voting record on her terminal. 46 species had voted yes. Only one had voted no. She checked which species had dissented. It was of Ornathi, a species so isolated and xenophobic that they rarely participated in consortium affairs at all. They had voted against the Accord not out of support for humans, but because they opposed any regulatory framework on principle. Solara closed her eyes. Humanity's only defender had been a species that did not care about them at all. Outside her window, space was quieter than she had ever seen it. The constant flow of human trading vessels was gone. The communication channels that had always carried human voices discussing deals, sharing information, coordinating shipments were silent. In the maintenance section of the station, a warning light began to flash. A minor malfunction in the oxygen recycling system, the kind of small problem that human technicians had always fixed within hours, often before anyone else even noticed. The light continued flashing. No one came to address it. The human technicians were gone. And slowly, quietly, in the vast silence that humanity had left behind, the first cracks began to form in the carefully ordered structure of the Galactic Trade Consortium. The cost of silence. 6 months after the humans left, the Galactic Trade Consortium began to understand what it had lost. The problem started small. A navigation beacon in Sector 9 went offline. The automated repair drones that humans had designed and maintained failed to activate. Without the beacon, 3 cargo ships collided in the shipping lane, killing 74 beings and destroying millions in trade goods. On Nexar 7, the largest trading hub in consortium space, the central computer system crashed for the first time in 20 years. The system had been installed by a human tech company and maintained by human specialists. The Morphean technicians tried to reboot it using the documentation the humans had left behind, but the manuals were written in technical language that did not translate well. It took 6 days to restore basic functions. During that time, thousands of transactions were delayed or lost entirely. Trade Director Zilfon watched his carefully organized systems crumble piece by piece. The humans had not sabotaged anything. Every system they had built still worked. The problem was that no one else knew how to fix them when they broke. Get me a communication link to human territory, Zilfon ordered his deputy. Kestrel's crystalline form flickered with uncertainty. Director, humans have closed their borders to consortium traffic. No vessels are permitted to enter their space without explicit authorization. Then request authorization, Zilfon said impatiently. The request was sent. 3 days later, a response arrived from the Human Border Authority. It was polite, formal, and completely unhelpful. The human government thanks the consortium for its inquiry. At this time, we are not accepting requests for technical assistance or consultation. We wish the consortium well in resolving its challenges. Zilfon read the message in disbelief. They are refusing to help us? They are refusing to enter our territory, Kestrel corrected. The message does not say they will not help. It says they will not come here. The distinction seemed meaningless to Zilfon. The consortium needed human expertise, and the humans were not providing it. That was all that mattered. But the technical problems were only the beginning. The Vraxian Dominion had been waiting at the edges of consortium space for decades, like predators watching a herd. They were a militaristic species that valued strength above all else. The only reason they had never attacked the consortium was simple. Human security forces had made it clear that aggression would be met with overwhelming response. Captain Lisa Morrison had once faced down a Vraxian battle group with nothing but her cargo ship and a reputation for absolute fearlessness. The Vraxian commander had backed down rather than risk a confrontation. That story had spread throughout both human and Vraxian circles, becoming legend. Now Lisa Morrison was gone. All the humans were gone. Their security vessels, their patrol routes, their quiet but unmistakable presence that had kept the peace for so many years had vanished. The Vraxians struck without warning. 5 consortium trading posts were destroyed in a single day. Distress signals went out across all frequencies, calling for help, calling for the rapid response forces that had always arrived when danger threatened. No help came. Chairman Velthus convened an emergency session. The conference hall was chaos. Representatives shouted at each other, their languages overlapping into incomprehensible noise. The calm order that had always characterized consortium meetings had dissolved. "We need military forces," demanded Representative Corvin of the Dryon species, his scale face flushed with anger. "The Vraxians are treating us like prey." "We have military forces," Velthus replied, trying to maintain composure. "The consortium defense fleet numbers 300 vessels. 300 ships without a single experienced commander," Corvin shot back. "The humans train all our tactical officers. They planned all our defensive strategies. They coordinated all our response protocols. Without them, we are flying blind." Velthus wanted to argue, but he could not. Corvin was right. The consortium had ships and weapons, but warfare was not something most species studied seriously. They relied on trade and diplomacy. They had relied on humans to handle the ugly necessity of security. The Morphean military attempted to respond to the Vraxian attacks. Admiral Jethrin, newly appointed command of the defense fleet, had studied human tactical manuals for weeks. He understood the theory. He knew what should be done. Theory and practice, however, were very different things. The battle lasted 4 hours. 15 consortium vessels were destroyed. The Vraxians lost 2 ships. Admiral Jethrin called for a retreat, and the remaining consortium forces scattered in disarray. When the casualty reports came in, Velthus sat alone in his office and wondered how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. The accord had been reasonable, logical, necessary for maintaining order. The humans had been problematic, yes, but surely the consortium could function without them. Yet here they were, 6 months later, watching their society fall apart. The economic collapse came next, and it was devastating in its scope. Humans had served as mediators in thousands of trade disputes over the years. They had a gift for understanding what different species valued, for finding compromises that satisfied multiple parties. Without human mediators, old disputes resurfaced. Trade agreements fell apart. Species that had worked together for decades suddenly found themselves in bitter conflicts over resources and territory. The Kelthrin and Prion species, once close trade partners, became locked in a legal battle over mining rights in the Delvon system. Without human negotiators to guide them toward compromise, the dispute escalated until both species withdrew from mutual trade entirely. Trillions in commerce vanished overnight. Representative Solara watched her species' economy contract day by day. The mining rights were important, yes, but not as important as the economic partnership that was being destroyed over them. She tried to reach out to the Prion delegation to find some middle ground, but without human diplomatic frameworks to guide the conversation, every discussion ended in frustration. She remembered Ambassador Richardson's quiet competence, his ability to listen to both sides and find solutions that no one else had considered. She had voted to restrict people like him. Now she was watching her civilization pay the price. On the consortium headquarters station, the problems multiplied. Life support systems that humans had maintained for years began experiencing failures. The water recycling network contaminated an entire section of the station, making thousands ill. The gravity generators in the agricultural dome malfunctioned, destroying crops. Emergency systems failed to activate during a hull breach, resulting in 17 deaths. Each failure was small, but together they painted a terrifying picture. The station was dying, and no one knew how to save it. Chairman Velthus authorized an emergency payment of 5 million credits to hire Morphean engineers to repair the critical systems. The engineers studied the human designs for weeks before admitting defeat. The systems were too complex, too interconnected. Human innovation had created infrastructure that no one else could replicate. 1 year after the humans left, Velthus did something he had never thought he would do. He recorded a personal message and sent it toward human space on all available frequencies. To the humans who once served alongside us in the Galactic Trade Consortium, he began, his forearms held in a gesture of supplication. I am Chairman Velthus. I am speaking not as leader of the consortium, but as one being to another. We were wrong. The Human Regulation Accord was a mistake, born from fear and misunderstanding. We see now what you provided. Not just technical expertise or military protection, but something deeper. You connected us. You helped us understand each other. You found common ground where we saw only differences. He paused, struggling to find words that could bridge the gulf his own policies had created. We are not asking you to return. We understand that trust, once broken, cannot be easily repaired. But I wanted you to know that we recognize our error. History will record that the consortium made a grave mistake when it pushed humanity away. I only hope that history will also record that we admitted our fault before it was too late. The message was sent. Days passed with no response. Then weeks. Then months. Finally, a reply came. It was not from any government official or military commander. It was from a human merchant named David Chun, captain of an independent trading vessel. Chairman Velthus, your message has been received and circulated among human communities. I am not authorized to speak for humanity as a whole, but I can offer a personal perspective. When we left consortium space, it was not out of anger. It was out of self-respect. You had made clear that our presence was problematic, so we removed that problem. We are not punishing you. We are simply living according to the boundaries you established. The message continued. You say you understand what we provided. Perhaps you do now. But understanding comes late, when respect came never. You wanted us to be useful but not equal, helpful but not honored. That is not a relationship we can accept. We wish you well in finding solutions to your challenges. But those solutions must come from within yourselves, not from species you view as tools to be controlled. Velthus read the message 10 times. Each reading made him feel worse. The human was not being cruel or vindictive. That would have been easier to bear. Instead, Chun was simply being honest. The humans had left because staying would have meant accepting disrespect, and they valued themselves too much for that. 2 years after the humans left, the consortium was a shadow of its former self. Half the member species had withdrawn to focus on their own territories. The trading hub on Nexar 7 was operating at 30% capacity. The headquarters station had been partially evacuated due to ongoing system failures. The Vraxian Dominion now controlled 23 systems that had once been consortium territory. Their expansion continued unchecked. The consortium defense fleet had been reduced to fewer than 100 functional vessels, most of which were too damaged or poorly maintained to be effective. Trade Director Zilfon stood in his office, now dark and cold because the environmental systems were failing. He looked out to space beyond, remembering how it had once been filled with ships from 100 worlds, all engaged in the grand project of interstellar commerce. Now the space was nearly empty. A few vessels drifted past, but nothing like the vibrant traffic that had once defined this place. His terminal chimed with an incoming message. It was from a consortium survey ship that had ventured near human territory. The captain reported something unusual. We detected massive construction activity just inside human space. The message read, new stations, new shipyards, new colonies. The scale is extraordinary. Whatever the humans are building, it is larger than anything consortium ever achieved. They appear to be thriving. Zilfon closed the message. Of course they were thriving. Humans did not need the consortium. They never had. The consortium had needed them. Representative Solara made one final attempt to reach across the divide. She commissioned a private vessel and traveled to the edge of human space. There at a border station, she requested permission to deliver a message. A human border officer appeared on her screen. She was young, perhaps 30, with dark hair and tired eyes. "State your business, Representative." "I wish to apologize," Solara said simply. "On behalf of my species and myself personally, we were wrong. We treated your people as a problem when you were actually our greatest blessing. I do not ask for forgiveness. I only wanted you to know that some of us understand what we lost." The human officer was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that. I'll make sure your message is logged in our records." "Will it make any difference?" Solara asked. "I don't know," the officer admitted. "Trust is hard to rebuild, but acknowledgement is a start. Maybe one day, when enough time has passed and enough has changed, there can be conversation again. But that day is not today." Solara thanked her and turned her ship back toward Consortium space. She had said what she needed to say. Whether it mattered or not was beyond her control. 3 years after the humans left, the Consortium headquarters station broadcast its final message. Power was failing throughout the structure. Life support was down to minimal levels. The few remaining occupants were being evacuated. The message was simple. This station stands as monument to what we built together and what we lost through our own fear. Let it be remembered that the humans did not destroy us. We destroyed ourselves by failing to value what we had. To future species who may find this station, learn from our mistake. When you find beings who help you without demanding subjugation, who protect you without claiming ownership, who offer friendship without requiring submission, treasure them, for you may never find such beings again. The transmission ended. The station went dark. Far beyond the crumbling borders of Consortium, humanity continued its journey forward. They built new worlds. They explored new territories. They formed new partnerships with species who approached them as equals. Ambassador James Richardson, now retired, sat on the porch of his home on a human colony world and watched the sunset. His assistant, Sarah Chun, now an ambassador herself, visited him occasionally to share stories from the frontier. "Do you ever regret leaving?" she asked during one visit. James thought about it carefully. "I regret that it was necessary," he said finally. "I regret that they could not see us clearly. But I don't regret the decision itself. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, not in anger, not in hatred, just in recognition that you deserve better than what you're being offered." Sarah nodded. "They're still trying to contact us, different representatives, different species. They all want to talk about reconciliation. And what do we tell them? We tell them that reconciliation requires foundation. Right now, there's no foundation. Maybe someday there will be, but that's for them to build, not us." James smiled. "You learned well." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the alien sun sink below the horizon of a world that humans had made their own. Behind them, human civilization stretched across a dozen systems, growing stronger every day. They had walked away in silence. And in that silence, they had found something the Consortium could never give them. They had found respect, earned not through service to others, but through respect for themselves. The galaxy would remember the humans who left without a word, and perhaps in time it would learn the lesson they had taught, that true partnership requires mutual respect, and that those who cannot offer respect do not deserve the gifts that partnership brings. In the ruins of Consortium space, that lesson was being written in the darkness of abandoned stations and conquered worlds. It was a harsh teacher, but an effective one, and somewhere in the vast silence between the stars, that lesson echoed on.